bizarre. You can kind of argue it and pretend you don't know about it or deny it or dispute it. But when you actually physically hide or destroy evidence, then I think your excuses are pretty thin then, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah, and it's the Maori are in charge of all the old burial sites and so on, and it's their domain, and the New Zealand government has no look in, and they twist their elbows, twist their arms now and again, and get things covered up.
Hello, welcome back. Although it's called Britain's Hidden History, today is really more like New Zealand hidden history and a fascinating story of the Waitaha, which I probably said wrong, and Tim will tell me how to say it properly in a minute, what it means. And the Waitaha were earlier occupants, or what would you call them? Inhabitants of New Zealand, who have been pretty much, well, almost wiped out, and not much trace of them. And then Tim Wilcox, who will be saying hello to in a second, found out about these, was in New Zealand, went back on a couple of visits, did a lot of research, also a spiritual journey, and these fascinating people who seem to be, being written out of history and not much chance of coming back in for political reasons. And it's a shame because well, for lots of reasons, but also a very interesting subject. So luckily today we have the author of this book, this fine gentleman you see on the cover. Is the same ones you see on the screen. So hello, Tim, how are you?
Hello, it's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that was me on the screen. I can't believe how young I look then.
You look very young now, actually. Yeah, you're very photogenic. There you go.
But that was 10 years, 11 years ago or something like that, when I was only quite young. I was only about 69.
All right.
And I was setting off on my major round-the-world journey.
And was your plan always to go to New Zealand then? I mean, how did that become such a big feature in what you?
It's always been something in my life I'd love to have done because I've never done it. And originally I went to University of British Columbia for a master's degree, 2 years, and then I was going to go to New Zealand, but things changed and I got married instead. But now, years later, when the kids grown up, I thought this is my chance to do it. My daughter works for British Airways and she has cheap tickets, so I hopped over to Vancouver, so the other kids, and then moved on to New Zealand and jumped into a new adventure with just my backpack and hiking boots.
Yeah, good for you. You must have been the without being at all offensive, must have been one of the oldest backpackers running around at the time, staying in the lodges and stuff.
I reckon I must have been, yes. There were only kids there.
Yeah, most people have their sort of gap year when they're about 20, don't they? That's the sort of general law. They walkabout, the Aussies call it, isn't it?
That's right, walkabout, and New Zealanders have their OE. Are you on your first OE, overseas experience?
Okay.
Or you do OEs. So they've always got good coffee because they learn from all around the world. They know how to blend it properly.
Yeah, enjoy it, isn't it? Yeah, enjoy it. There we go. Right, okay, so I mean, I'll over to you, really. I mean, I'm not saying no, I've read the book, and we'll try. I think you can I'll put a link up because there's only a few copies left, but you can get from Tim. And I was fascinated by it. I can't remember how I stumbled on this. Well, I think part of what we're doing is I'm working on Wilson and Blackett's book, The Odyssey, which explains that the Odyssey is not a journey around the Mediterranean; it's potentially a journey around the whole world, and this includes a stop off. Potentially in New Zealand. And I think I was researching, putting out feelers for what I could find about early writing in New Zealand and anything like that, really. And that's when I came across Tim's book, got in touch with Tim and thoroughly enjoyed it. And there's so much in there. So I'm not sure where you got there. So what was the first things that happened? And Tim, you want to talk us through it? I mean,
yeah, I think the first thing that happened was landing in New Zealand, and I was brand new to the place. And each day I'd go out of some backpacker hostel and go to the eyesight office, which is like the local tourist office, staffed by young people, all enthusiastic. And I said, I need to do something in New Zealand today. Where can I go? oh mate, why don't you go down to the station? We can get you a ticket here. You travel up to Arthur's Pass. You get a good view of a lot of things there. That'd be good. And some days I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so what I did is take out my pendulum and ask the pendulum, which way is a good way to go, train, bus, or air? And I'd work with that. And it came out quite amazingly good. It always has good
Excellent.
answers when I really need it. So that was one way of traveling. And
If you've got some pictures, just let people know. I've got lots of pictures we'll be sharing as well. So
yeah.
some great pictures. We'll pop those up in a minute.
And then there was a point after I'd done my 2.5, nearly 3 weeks, just looking at New Zealand. That was what I was on the first mission for, just get around the place. I was just having a catnap in the hostel in the afternoon before I had to get the bus. And just as I woke up, I had this voice really strongly in my head saying, you are to return to New Zealand within 6 months and stay for at least 4 months and help Lamaya, who is a therapist friend in New Zealand of mine from the past. And honestly, Ross, I said, shit, I don't want to do that. And then over the next day or two, I thought, you don't often get voices in your head telling you to do things. Well,
Not
I don't.
specifically, no.
Oh,
I think that's brilliant.
And I thought maybe I better look into this one. In the end, I made a deal. I said, I will do it if I can sell my my camping van in England, and if I can rent out my flat in England. Once I said that, it all suddenly fell into place, and I was left having to do it.
No excuses left.
Really, yeah, I had. It's really exciting because I had to learn how to use a new computer, a Mac, and get lots of things into order, and just leave this place here for 6 months or so. And that was the beginning of my real travels. And it was all part of a spiritual journey, I reckon. This whole thing, it's like a pilgrimage, the trail I've been on, because little things kept happening. No.
So, sorry to interrupt, but so is that when, did the Waitaha come in straight away? I mean, were you already aware of the Waitaha, or was that something that came later?
Yeah, no, that's another strand that comes in. Yeah, because before I was going, I was talking to my ex-wife, who we got on very well with, and just emailing saying, I'm going to New Zealand. And she was the one who said, you really must look at this thing by Junvalu Melchizedek, who's a sort of New Age prophet. And there's a clip here from him, read it. And it was really, really interesting and important about the Waitaha, how they were the people of peace who melted back into the mountains when there was any invasion coming, and just a little bit about them. And I thought that ties in with the White Brotherhood. It ties in some very important stuff. And I forwarded it to a lot of my friends, and they all repeated it, how important it was. It was great that what I was doing, but I kind of didn't know who Dunvalu was, and I just sort of left it on the side. And so that was a very important start. And also, I was walking down near Glastonbury. I think it was, can't remember, a little village nearby. And I was on a walking group with some other people. And I was really questioning, was I doing the right thing by going back to New Zealand? And at that moment, another small party of people came down a side street, and the leader of our group said, oh, you're here, how good to meet you. And the leader of the other small group was a Waitaha elder in Glastonbury, near Glastonbury. What a wonderful place to meet that kind of person.
Yeah, what are the odds on that? Yeah.
No. And so that gave me another clue that I was on the right direction. So then within a month or two, I was over to Vancouver, stayed with my 2 boys there for a week or two, and then headed out to New Zealand. And it was a good flight. The Los Angeles domestic airport to start with, changed to Los Angeles International, which is very different and had a big, large, grouchy US cop. And I don't like them. But anyway, it all worked through very well. But it took a hell of a long time. It seemed to be about 3 days. and landed in Auckland. And this time I had some ideas where I was going. Within Kiwi's next 1,600 kilometers.
Brilliant.
Oh yeah, I stopped in with I got cousins over there, so I could stop with them a couple of nights. And
Wow,
that's
beautiful.
yeah, it is. It's just off Wellington, just in the harbour there. And I think the first place I went to was Arthur's Pass. After that hostel, I went to the eyesight office.
Not the King Arthur that we normally look at, is it? I think that was
No,
Lord Arthur or someone, wasn't it?
yeah. And this is a train journey, wiggling up the mountains and getting to Arthur's Pass, which is a high place. So yeah, from the Arthur's Pass, fantastic views up there, and then going down further west, where Lake Wakatipu. This is where, and it's just stunning scenery wherever you go, almost, and off to the and dolphins swimming alongside. You just take a ferry boat ride to the dolphins.
Amazing.
And Mount Cook there. So this is just a little bit of scenery in the background. I think Karako Oraki. And there's mud pools, geysers, and all sorts of interesting. If you step off something boiling mud pools, you do have to be careful. There's no limits. There's no chains or ropes around it, so you can't fall in. No health and safety in most of it.
Treat you like grown-ups, yeah.
Yeah, it's right. And it's just down the Haka Falls, which is a huge body of water coming down that canal there. There's some wonderful, huge trees. In the mountains, you can see the pregnant form of a woman there, always looking at landforms. Okay.
So is that with her head up with her head on the far right? Is it? Or how does it work?
Head on the right. Well, she could be either way around, couldn't she?
Yes.
But with the Maori people and the previous people, the Waitaha, the landforms are really important, and reading things into it all. But the Maori are the current indigenous people, and they don't want to know about anyone who might have been there before them, because it causes problems for us. Who were there first, and would the Maori now lose their claim as people there, lose their land rights? So they don't want to know about anybody before that.
Yeah, there's a big political issue at the moment with the Maoris and that, isn't it? Because they're like I say, they have this claim of being the indigenous people, and on the basis of which then they get all sorts of special rights and claims on the land, the air, the water, everything, isn't it? As I understand it.
Yeah, it is. It's right. It's very, very important to them.
Well, I think the Maoris arrived in the 1300s or 1400s, something like that.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, which is about the same as when the Whites arrived, I think.
Sorry, about the same as what? Sorry.
Well, back here, Whites from Europe came there about that sort of time.
Yeah, the Europeans weren't far behind them, were they? Yeah. So almost the same claim to the islands, really. That's very controversial to say that. Yeah.
Oh God, it is. Yes, very.
Yes.
And there's so many signs that it's way older. It's up to 5,000 years ago. There was a civilization there for sure.
Wow.
And one a doctor, she's a very wise doctor, Rose Perry, said to me, she said, the Waitaha, they've only been here about 70 generations. We've been here for way longer. And there's that around. And Rangi, one of my people there, friends, said, well, we date back to, well, I don't have to say it too loud to anyone, but we're back to Lemuria.
Lemuria?
And yeah.
What does that mean?
It means it's pre-Atlantis.
Oh, right. A long time back. Okay.
Yeah,
You're into the real ancient stuff. Have you got any
yeah,
pictures of any Waitaha people, or just trying to think
yeah.
back from the book? And there's a lot of lovely pictures in here.
And myself a camper van.
Yeah, yeah, the famous camper van. Yeah,
Famous
yeah. So
camper
clicking on
van.
that, go on. That's the star of the show, really, isn't it?
Yeah, that we settled on this because before that, in the very first visit, I'd made friends with a Kiwi lady who we just got on so well, and I got her kitted out to go camping here, and then off we go on a journey somewhere. I'd say, "Where are we going today?" He said, "Well, you haven't been to the Hastings area yet. Let's go over there." Well, I'd say,
Fantastic.
"I know," and I'd say, "I've been told that I'd go to Te Moringa," and she said, "Okay, let's go there. Where is it?" It's a healing center, and it's anyone goes there get healed. Oh, she
Yes.
said, that sounds cool. Let's go there.
Yeah. This is the impression I get from reading the book, that the whole, well, the problem, if you like, the Waitaha have got is that their whole culture seemed to be based around healing and peace, and they never had any weapons, or were the opposite of warlike.
Exactly, yeah. And it was succeeding people with the white ones. And it seems to have originated about 1,000 years ago, so I forgot how many, when food stocks got out in the Pacific. And so there was no warfare until that happened. But after that, there was food shortages, starvation, and that's when it started between different islanders.
Well, the Maori are a particularly tough bunch, aren't they? Let's be honest.
They are, God, yes,
You
they
don't want to
are.
get in a land war with Maoris, yeah. You just look what happens on the rugby
Yeah.
field.
One of the Waitaha here
Yep, let's have a
is
look.
Yvette.
Oh, she was lovely. What a kind face.
Yeah, she's one of the Waitaha elders, and she was actually doing a tour in this country about 8 years ago. I didn't get once in New Zealand, but I have done since. And she has this intuitive insight and knowledge, a very profound understanding of so many things. Here she is in Glastonbury, and pointed to something on Mary Magdalene's, and she went through a whole history of a whole lot of information just by holding her rod there and touching
Being in
into
the
things.
presence.
She kind of, yeah, fantastic. So she's the sort of person, as a Waitaha, and there's another who I met while I was in New Zealand, Kira. And Kira told me about, she told me that, well, I'll tell you the story, that I was actually doing a Bowen information course on my therapy work there, and we were staying in a hospital in a community center. Is a forget the name of it offhand, but I went down into the common room one day, and somebody down there who's a distinctly sort of brown face, I thought she'd be Maori. She looked at me and she said, "Who are you and what are you doing here?" They're very blunt sometimes.
I noticed in the book they say what they think, yes.
I said, "I'm Tim. I'm here to do a Bowen course, and I've also got this mission to find out who the Waitaha are, because I don't know." And she looked at me, spread out her arms wide, and said, "I'm a Waitaha grandmother. What do you want to know?"
Perfect. Perfect.
And we embraced. We just start with the Ring of Fire.
Okay.
Earthquakey place with New Zealand stuck out there at the end of it, a part of the Ring of Fire all around that ocean, the one that goes round to Americas. And anyway, as we were talking, the ancient wisdom keeper, it's like a ancient dragon kind of thing. It's called a tuatara, and he said he holds the knowledge of about 270 million years, I think. Wow. He's been around an awful long time. I'm wrong on my dates and time limits, but
It does look
he
like
is the ancient one.
a dragon, doesn't it? It's got the sort of the scales on the spine and everything.
Yeah, yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah. He's some fantastic beaches. Riding, horse riding is good. Right. So there's a Mitsubishi called Eugene, but anyway.
Eugene,
we're
I
sitting-
remember it had a name in the book. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So we're off. And yeah, it's a first trip we've done together, and it was great.
Right, so here we go. This is what I want to get to now, because this is the cross house at
Yeah,
Moringa Tikakara, right?
yeah. And it's known as Te Moringa, or the House of the Four Winds, or anyway, is Kira who gave me that reading, that in automatic writing when I met her, and she'd said, I'm Waitaha grandmother. On the day I left, I texted her and said, tell me, where's Te Moringa? You told me I should go there. And the reply came back, oh yeah, you need to go up to some little place, and said, look out for the signpost on the edge of the road, and you'll find your way if you're meant to get there.
I like that.
And yeah, and I found the way.
Brilliant.
And at Christmas time, I took Helen up there because she'd already said that whoever goes there gets healing. Helen needed healing, so I took her up there, and that was part of the mission, I think. And that's how the layout is.
Yeah, this is what I get on to. I just jump in a second, just to give some background for people. So I'm reading from the book on page 36, because the courthouse we just saw, well, the original courthouse built in 1682, burnt down 1983, but the key is underneath it. It seems to be built over the site of a star temple, which I think is what we're looking at the alignment now.
Yeah.
With important alignments, local landmarks and sunrises and solstices. And it suggests that the 8,000 or 8.613, sorry, 8,613 year lunar cycle is being tracked. So that, this is very interesting. Yeah, if you want to talk a bit more about that one.
With this, the lunar cycle is something that's Callanish in Scotland, and I'm not sure whether it's Avebury or Stonehenge, but a lot of these are based on that same kind of understanding. So
yes, clearly very important to them, wasn't it? The tracking the sun and the moon. Yes.
Yeah, it's as if there's an international across the world thing going on, and they're working on similar things right across the world. And this is probably at least 5,000 years ago.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? That I know you say in the book that the Maoris claim 35 generations and the Waitaha claim 70 generations.
Yeah.
Which, 20 odd years a generation or something, maybe 2,000 years, but this is 5,000 years, isn't it? This is
yeah.
Any idea where that idea comes from? Why you think it's so old?
Because the lunar cycle, these star temples, like the picture here, are very similar to the layout of Stonehenge, or to Callanish, or to the points of the compass, and they're all in alignment on what they're working with.
Right. So the particular,
the design is
or something along.
Yeah.
Because this is where we start to get into the problems now, isn't it? Because this would seem to be many thousands of years old, but of course, officially, nothing can exist. No humans can exist there before the Maori, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
We have this other example with I think it's the Pacific rat or the Polynesian rat.
That's right. Yes.
So how does the rat tie into this story?
Well, the rat was they proved by now I can't remember it, but it arrived in New Zealand before the date that the Maori did, and yet the Maori claim it came with them.
Yeah. I think you're saying in the book that they managed to trace it. Some sort of migration took place about 2,000 years ago, whereas the Maoris only came about 800 years ago. So there's another problem, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. And there's a number of things like that, which which are in the book, and nobody in authority has explained them. And there's in some places, or one or two caves, there's skulls in there which have been dated to maybe 3,500 years ago and more than that. And some of those got European features, so it's almost like Celtic.
Okay.
And
yes, I think somewhere in the book you mentioned the skeletons with red hair and stuff like that.
Because the stories, the tradition of the Waitaha, they were red-haired, blue-eyed, blue or green-eyed, and they originally came from the area of Tibet. That was a migration originally, which is probably 10,000 years ago or more. The historian that I spoke to, Maui Wipu, he's a historian for the Waitaha, and he knows a lot of interesting things about their stories. Is it from the area of Nepal area? Originally, they went two major migrations. One was westwards, going through Germany, England, Scotland, and Wales, and traveling further on through the Americas, coming down to South America, and then traveling across to New Zealand that way. And there's a branch who traveled eastwards, going down through Japan and going that direction.
Right, so the ones that went down to South America would have gone west across the Pacific. Is that right? Would have gone the long way around, as it were.
Yeah, always traveling westwards.
Always traveling west. Okay.
Just like
interesting, yeah. Because because the Kon-Tiki expedition showed that kind of journey is possible with primitive rafts,
right.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Without riggers and catamarans or whatever, you can.
Yeah.
There's direct navigation between South America and, well, New Zealand and Australia and those sort of areas, the Pacific Islands, aren't there?
And the westward traveling people, he said, and they went through Wales and Ireland and so on. And I just interjected and said, I've got some Welsh antecedents. And he said, he just shut it and said, then you have the responsibility. They were the senior branch. So I don't know where that leaves you and me.
I don't know. All these things seem to come back, whichever direction we go with these researches and studies, it all seems to come back to this Welsh connection. I don't know. It's not just come from Wales, just seems to be everything seems to end up somehow.
Yeah. And I did have a hitchhiker with me at the time.
Right.
She was from Japan, Marina. And she'd never heard any of this stuff at all before. But when he said that the ones going eastwards, they came to Japan, and he looked at her and said, the sign of the haka, isn't that in some of the Japanese puppetry and the shows there? And she gasped and said, yes, it is. She'd never thought of that.
It is, because there's also evidence, isn't it, for red-haired white people in Japan, I think. This must be the original samurai, perhaps.
Yeah. And the red hairs traveled the world. So I reckon that red hair, blue-eyed or green-eyed, and there's still some in New Zealand intermixed with Maori, because some of the Maori have got very red hair. And across the Pacific Islands, there's fair hairs and there's red hairs. And nobody wants to know about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, we'll come on to that in a minute. Yeah. So why is the sorry, I was going to say, have you any idea how many Waitaha are about, or how many people claim to be Waitaha heritage?
Well, they did a census some time ago. Pure blood Waitaha, I don't know, probably a few thousand.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
It's a tiny population, but it's not quite wiped out then.
Yeah, and in fact, there was in the Chatham Islands. The Chatham Islands are further east than New Zealand, and the Chatham Islands had a population of people called the
Moriori, that's it. It sounds a bit like Maori, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. They're a bit darker skinned, and they were eliminated. They were murdered.
Yes.
They were totally peaceful.
I read about that because that was quite recent as well, wasn't it? That was, I think,
Yeah, I think
1860s.
the last Moriori were killed or died out in about 1930.
Wow, as recently as that. So I think they took a British ship, didn't they? Went across there with an armed group to wipe them out.
Yeah, they
So,
took them. They took Maori from Taranaki, the Taranaki people, warlike as hell, and they took them to these nice islands, the Chatham Islands, where totally peaceful people were living and growing all their supplies, and the Taranaki, well, we just call them Maori. They told them they'll come back in a few days, and if they didn't want to join them, then be prepared to die, more or less. And they came back and they slaughtered them all.
Mm.
And the Moriori sat around and were clubbed to death because they didn't put up resistance. Yeah, they had a saying, something like, "To live rightly is to die rightly."
Yeah. I've heard another version of that, which is where how you live is more important than how you die, I think, isn't it?
That's right. That's it. You got it better. Yes, thanks.
Yeah. That's right. That's an awful story, isn't it?
Yeah,
and that's in quite recent history, really.
Yeah, because
I think it's 1860s where they managed to get hold of some Royal Navy ships and went across.
Rented out one of his ships.
Yeah, it's a lot of trouble to go and kill people. It's quite tragic.
Yeah.
Because well, I guess we just jump into a little bit then, because this does tie directly then with what you describe in the book as a sort of amnesia, really, isn't it? A denial and amnesia that the country of New Zealand has, and it's actually denying itself thousands of years of history and heritage.
Yeah. I actually had a friend in Malvern yesterday, where I live, said he has 3 people he knows very well in New Zealand, and none of them have ever heard of the Waitaha. And it's a total revelation. They've got to rethink their whole history. Nobody likes to do that.
Do you want to just move on to another picture, perhaps, just while we're talking?
Oh yeah, I keep forgetting about the pictures.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yes, this doesn't matter really. I mean, oh, is that inside the what do they call it? There's a special name for the building.
Wharenga.
Easy for you to say, yeah.
Was it when you see a WH? It's actually pronounced F.
Ah, that's one going wrong. Okay.
Yeah. It's a very soft WH.
Okay.
So when you come to your inheritance and your background and everything, you look at your it's called your whakapapa, is your history, genealogy, and everything that you are. But it's WH, whakapapa, pronounced whakapapa.
Okay.
Which is unusual kind of pronunciation.
Yeah, go careful how you say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Marvelous. Because I mean, I don't know if you have any. I don't think you have any pictures of this in the book or anything, because it's not something you really photograph. But there are some great views. Yeah. Is there? This is a bit which absolutely staggered me in the whole book more than anything, and you've written sadly, and I think it is incredibly sad, that not only is the evidence officially not acknowledged, but it's actually been deliberately destroyed, and that many of these caves have been having the entryways covered and concealed, and they've even used a bulldozer in one instance.
Yes. I came across that reading something, but I can't remember exactly where it was.
I think I should put the website up, celticnz.co.nz.
Okay, yeah. Good.
I meant to bring it up before so we could share it on the screen, but I mean,
yeah, and it's the Maori are in charge of all the old burial sites and so on, and it's their domain, and the New Zealand government has no look in, and they twist their elbows, twist their arms now and again, and get things covered up.
Well, they're rapidly becoming the government. They won't have to do much twisting soon.
Yeah.
Hang on a second. There's the next. Just moving along slightly. Then is the. Sorry, I dumped this on you a little bit from nowhere now. Is
okay.
Right, I'm going to try again. The Stonehenge Aotearoa. Aotearoa.
Aotearoa.
Aotearoa, that's the one, Aotearoa. Now, apparently there's the Phoenix Astronomical Society, that support the Royal Society of New Zealand, is trying to encourage all ages to rediscover the knowledge of their ancestors. And they built a Stonehenge, which is a bizarre thing.
Yeah, and here's a photo of it.
Oh, there we go. Well done. Brilliant. Oh, it looks like we put hours of rehearsal into this. I'll just throw together these programs. Yes, go on. Yes.
It's a big stone circle, and the ship, because it's based on a slightly different calendrical system. It's, if you're an Aries, for example, on the system of this Stonehenge, you might just be into Taurus, or you might be the one before.
Okay.
It's very close, but it's got a slightly different dating system, which I think is more closely aligned to the Indian system of astrology. Right,
more Vardic kind of thing, is it? Or
yeah,
because it's a curious thing anyway, isn't it? Because I mean, it's not so I'm an expert on by any means, but because of the grand procession, the star signs gradually move anyway, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
the current zodiac we follow is sort of as it was, I don't know, 1,000 years ago or 1,500 years ago. So a lot of people whose star sign is at the end of the month are probably into the next one, aren't they, or the previous one, depending on which way you look at things.
Yeah, and that's in this system, I'd remain in Aries, which I am now, but I think Helen would have been on the previous one.
Yes, that's right. You do mention some of that in the book as well, don't you? Oh, what a beautiful site. They've done a good job.
Mm.
It's a bizarre idea, isn't it?
Really well done.
That's going to confuse future archaeologists, isn't it? Wonder where that suddenly come from.
Yeah.
So are they making any headway at all, this Phoenix Society and the Astrological Society or Astronomical Society? Are they getting many people to know these things, or?
I just don't know.
Right, okay. Difficult to tell, I suppose, because the impression I get is they're getting the same difficulties and problems getting this kind of history freely discussed in New Zealand. We have a lot of getting things discussed in Britain, you know. It seems to be control of history is obviously a big thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I just had an email this morning saying it takes the Brits to dig up these things. Nobody in New Zealand wants to talk about them.
Yeah. Right, now can we just talk? I'm wondering with this picture, that looks very much like Easter Island ones, doesn't it?
That was a gift from the Peruvian government to New Zealand.
Beautiful.
It is, because it's a moa they call it, and that's in a moa, and that's just been placed just beside Wellington Airport.
Okay, and does this tie in then with the origins, the three phases, and that's the Maui, is it? Is that what we're talking about there?
It's just it's a statue, just as they have them in Easter Island.
Yes, yeah. I say this all ties in with the creator stuff, does it? With the
I think that it does. Yeah, and it's a different.
Sorry, I'll just read the first part of your parrot. I had this marked as one of the bits to read. Is that the Maui's narrative? So there's different parts to this. We got the understand first. Okay, well, we sort of looked at that a bit. The migrations, hopefully we've already talked a bit about that. You mentioned going through Wales and Japan and around the world.
Yeah.
But there's also the second phase, which is the origins. So first of all, the beginning, there was no light, just total utter darkness. It's amazing how these themes are the same thing, aren't they? In the Bible and every other record.
Yeah, they are.
You can't help but think they are drawing on some memory or something rather than just being a random events. Anyway, you can think of this as a deep, deep hole into the earth, deep into the darkness, and down there are the creator's original instructions. These give a complete plan of the past, present, and future, both conscious and unconscious. And of course, even the meeting, and of course, even the meeting of us here and now. So that time was the Earth Mother, represented by a matriarchal society, Paleolithic or Old Stone Age. and then comes in the father, Sky Father, and then you go on to farming and all that kind of stuff. So they got a whole origins. I don't like the word mythology because everyone just thinks that's, you know, it's silly. But I mean, it's a kind of a history, a prehistory history, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, that was the most intense hour and a half of
Yes.
history I've ever had in my life. Because
yeah, tell us more about that. Yeah, because there's interesting passage there. Yes.
Yeah, was with my hitchhiker Marina, was just a young fruit picker. We were looking for somebody had said you need this. Well, we've been given indications that we might find something at Arahura. We got to Arahura and asked, and no, it was totally blank. Marina, who'd never seen a pendulum before, suddenly said, "Tim, use your pendulum." And the pendulum took us up one way, and suddenly we saw chickens in the field, and she said, "We need more eggs." So we jumped out and got some more eggs. And then the pendulum went back the other way, and she said, Marina said, "Oh, there's a goat in the field there. Maybe we need goat's milk."
Right.
So we knocked on the door, and the woman answered and said, "No, goat's milk. No, the goat's gone dry right now. But the Waitaha, well, just wait a minute and wait for my husband." And it turned out that he was the man who was a historian for the Waitaha.
Fantastic.
And he was also, I think they just had an All Blacks rugby match, and they had the whole team staying in the house.
Wonderful. So you were meant to meet this person, clearly.
Yeah. Well, that sort of happened. It was happening all the time. It was quite incredible how we met the right people.
Yeah, you just got to go with your spirit sometimes, haven't you? You know,
Right.
with you, it's a pendulum, and other people have other methods. And
Yeah.
I think it's being in tune with something, isn't it? Something we don't quite understand, but hopefully we all realize there's something there.
Mm.
You know, we're aware of something, aren't we? We need to try and, you know, clean our minds and get into it more.
Yeah. And I haven't been doing it for a while, and I keep thinking, am I in the right direction right now? But
yes,
I'm in the right direction.
So what happened in the session then? That's when you met the historian, is that right?
Yeah. She took us in, gave us hibiscus tea and banana cake, and sat us down, and we sat there for 2 hours listening to this man going through the whole thing. And then we drove away exhausted, and found a lay-by or somewhere, and just crashed out and fell asleep. And that was the end of that day.
Yeah, what a day. What a day. Yeah, I like that flexibility. You can just stop and sleep. There you go, kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've got any pictures coming up, because I think one of the things that came up in all this was that it's also spiral patterns and things as well. Would you like to talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, no. Yes, I don't know enough about these, but the double spiral motif is very distinctly Waitaha.
Yeah, because it's not generally a Polynesian thing, is it? It seems to be.
No.
And I think that's an interesting one. I'd like to see more of that. Yeah, just flick through the pictures. Just let people get a flavour as we go through. Okay. Well, that's your fruit picker friend, right?
Yeah, fruit picker Marina.
Yeah, another beautiful colleague. You like Doctor Who, you are. These traveling partners just come along the journey.
Being fed, and they grow up to 60 years old, and they've got a 60-year life cycle.
Wow!
And very scarce, and they're losing ground because they're being eaten too quickly.
Oh, people eat them, do they? Yeah.
So, and is that there's what they call almost university, the University of the Waitaha, where New Zealand was the center of it, and these rocks are just at the center of that place. And the name of it's gone out of my head right at the moment.
Yeah, I can find out in a second. I remember you saying about the university, because you think there's some evidence of people visiting back and forth to get knowledge from this area and going back home again, perhaps.
Yeah, because to go there, they sailed in those great canoes, the wakas, and had a whole community in New Zealand, which was based on Hawaii. Hawaii. That's where they came from originally, but they had deputations sailing out to New Zealand, and to know the currents and to know the navigation of it all, they need, every generation they'd send a new batch of people, and they'd have sort of another 70 people go, so they'd learn the navigation skill personally, and they would have every generation. So every generation would have new knowledge and understand the old ones and how to get there. And this is
just because it's amazing in those journeys, they don't seem, somehow they manage to be able to survive on the journeys without taking vast supplies or huge containers of water or anything.
No, they must have done it all fishing and taking their time. And the currents are huge, currents, whirlpools, and they call it the octopus, the whirlpools.
Yes. That's right. And that could be where the spirals come in as well, couldn't it? It's all to do with the overall pattern.
And they say they had special stones by which they could travel. They could divine or so. Here, under here, he's got a rock by his hand. It's known as Compass Rock. Now, whether they actually took this one on travels, I don't know. But the Waitaha people in this area know about it, and they know how important it is.
So when I presented at Megalithomania this year, there was a lady on there whose name I can't remember. I'll try and link it when it goes live on YouTube. And she has a theory which is very compelling about these old stones being memory stones, where the patterns of dots and swirls act as like an aide-memoire to help you. Like it could be a route, like which currents to take, where to get the fish, what animals to eat. There's a lot of information possibly coded onto these. Yes,
that's what I was told there. That my informant at one point said, these two showed me a whole rock face of different things. He said, just in these two little stones I have in my hand, somebody could speak for 3 days by the information here. And look at that rock face. What information is there?
Yeah, you just need the key, don't you, to unlocking it.
Yeah, that's really important what you just said.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm fascinated by this. So this ancient, what and what the right word is, fearful of, what I'm very fearful and very worried is that maybe more of the old messages and carved rocks are being deliberately, obfuscated or destroyed, and we're losing clues because the people who can actually understand the code, it's not very many around, are they? It's difficult to work it backwards.
And this one is
a key somewhere, don't you?
Yeah, and this one has carvings of the double spirals here. On this one, it's a recent carving on a whale's tusk or tooth, and the carver is Maori, but he says, I was told there were previous generations who knew all this knowledge, and he's not familiar with it, but he knows about it. And
did he recognize the Waitaha? Or he just says previous generations?
I think he knows the name, but he doesn't. He's not specifically a Waitaha.
Okay. Well, he wasn't saying, "Oh, the Waitaha taught me." Nothing like that. No. Nothing directly.
He knows there were people before we came here, is what he said.
Oh, okay. Well, that's something, then, isn't it?
Yeah. He was very open.
Yeah, sorry. I don't think we need to talk about Barry Brailsford too much, do we? Let's anyway carry on with if you want to. Got a little chap.
Yeah.
Wonderful, just walking across the road.
Yeah, and my daughter came out for 2 weeks to visit, and here are the Moraki boulders.
Yeah, do you know anything about those? They're amazing, aren't they?
Aren't they? I've seen some smaller ones in Kansas. It is, but these are biggest and best. And I don't know how they got there, but nearby they have this picture on a stone, a pictograph, and nobody knew what it was. They assumed it was 4 people sitting up in a canoe or something, and a star of some sort underneath at the bottom there. The white professors didn't know what it was at all, until they got the information from a local man, a Maori, who said, no. One time there was a kumara, the sweet potato, seed potatoes from the kumara come from Hawaii, and they were brought to here. It's in South Island, and they got shipwrecked. And you can see it in the bottom right, on the bottom, there's a sort of star or something.
Yep.
That was the rock that sank them, and those are the kumara. And it was such an important thing because that season there were no seed potatoes or kumara there, and they had a wipe out of the crop. It changed their history. So this is a memory of that event.
They're all starving, like a great famine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow. 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 Fantastic.
It's when my daughter was there, and it's one of the glaciers that almost at sea level. It comes right down to sea. I think that was the fox. There's two main ones, fox or hearse. I think this is a fox, but I've never been on by a glacier before.
Yeah, they're weird, aren't they? They don't even look cold, do they, Simmer?
No, it doesn't. And it wasn't cold. It was just beautiful weather. Incredible.
It is amazing.
And
why isn't it just melting in rivers? I mean, it's strange.
Yeah. And then we also, while she was there, we also did the Tongariro crossing, which is probably the finest one day trek in the world. Well, one of the best. Fantastic place to go see, because you've got the old lava tubes up in the mountains, and the hot lakes full of sulfur and steam. You're walking, as they say, you're walking over volcanoes up in on Tongariro crossing.
Absolutely stunning, yeah.
Yeah.
You should get some permission from New Zealand Tourist Board.
I know, I should, yeah.
Because
but it's just a Tongariro crossing. We made it. I was never being so exhausted in my life at the end of that.
Oh, you walked all that, did you?
Yeah.
Good effort. Sheesh. I'll have to get a bit fitter, I think.
That's a good wine growing area here.
And that's south, well, north. Yeah, do they have south-facing sun or north-facing sun, I suppose?
I don't know which way around New Zealand is. It's the other end of the world.
Me.
This is Waitaha. They'd started, or they'd used reed boats. So that's almost like Kontiki. But this is on South Island, New Zealand. And there's very few people can make them anymore now.
Yeah, how do they keep them watertight? Are they lined with anything? They use mud or?
I never actually saw one.
It's so tight that the water doesn't get in, is it? That's amazing.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And are they actually Waitaha men?
Those two, I think they are. Yeah. Was one of them is Rangi. Rangi was in Waitaha, and he was an informant. He's died since, and I think one is either him or his mate. And his son makes those as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, you got to keep these things going.
Yeah. When I came to the end of my trip,
I
had to sell the van. Eugene,
you have to call it Eugene.
Yeah.
Not just the van.
Yeah. And then the crossing back over from South Island to North Island.
Fantastic photographs. You really are a good photographer.
Yeah. Well, it happens sometimes. Yeah, and New Zealand's got incredibly good weather and very photogenic. But the Waitaha motto is revere everything, but worship nothing. Which I like, revere everything. Yeah,
revere everything, worship nothing.
Yes.
I think that's a pretty good way to look at most things.
It is. Kiwi, yes.
Fantastic. Yep, so there's the book. I have to say, it's an excellent read. It's not a huge book, 114 pages or so, but it's packed with great pictures, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the spiritual side of it, the information, and I don't know what's going to happen with this Waitaha thing. I mean, as far as I can see, I don't know. It seems to be getting worse rather than better, as far as I can tell. I don't
Yeah.
know what the long term is going to be for them, or if they're going to be recognised in any way. So there we go. We got a bit of New Zealand's hidden history this week.
Yeah, it's whole hidden history, and I was asking, I asked questions of Rangi, and sometimes they got too deep for him, and said, "No, you need to ask Peter for that." And when I got back to the UK, I phoned Peter, and I got the reply, "He's out just now. He's in the hospital." And I said, "Oh, sorry, is he okay?" He's fine. He's just visiting a mate.
Oh, he's visiting.
The second time I phoned for Peter, he's away just now. When will he be back? We don't know. When he's gone to Japan or somewhere to do some earth healing. He'll be back when he's finished. So Peter's gone earth healing, and there's a whole network of people all around the world doing this. So he's working on different levels.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, it sounds like a very, very special people, and with this very pure heart and this healing spirit, I hope that their positive energy and faith and goods, if you like, can overcome the rather enormous forces and powers that seem to be racked up against them at the moment. Like it's.
I know, yeah, but yeah, as a Native American say, we're living in the beginning of the fifth world now. It's been destroyed 4 times already. We're in the beginning of the fifth, so it's up to us what happens.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, Tim. I think it's absolutely wonderful you've done this book. I mean, I'll put some details out. Can you get copies of the book from you, or is it on eBay, or how's the best way to get hold of the book?
It's best if they get to me, email me, or it's on my website as well.
Oh, you got your website as well. All right, okay. Yeah. I'll put that up on the description. Do you want to just give the name of the website? I didn't know you had a website.
Yeah. It's www.thebowenman.co.uk.
Okay, I'll put that on the screen when I've looked it up. The Wowen Man.
The Bowen Man.
Bowen Man. Okay, I better spell that on the screen, I think. I'll type it out in full, right?
Okay.
As a caption. No, well done you, because I haven't seen any of the books about the Waitaha or anything, and
no, there's nothing written.
No. So you, it's real, groundbreaking work you're doing here. So
yeah, but as they might say, it's a why the hell does somebody from England have to write about people?
Yeah, sadly true.
Nobody from there's done it yet.
Yeah, well, hopefully this will trigger a response. I'll be very interested myself to see how it goes. So
yeah, I really appreciated this.
No, I appreciate you writing the book and coming on. I think it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I've just had a few more copies printed in case anybody wants.
Well, let's hope they fly out. What's the traditional sort of goodbye or something? Is there all I know is Kia ora, which I think is hello, isn't it? So I don't know what.
Aloha, bro.
Aloha blue, is it? Aloha blue.
Aloha, peace, brother.
Oh, brother. I see. So it's a bit of English thrown in the end, right? So, all right, aloha, brother. I usually say hevu. So today I want to say aloha.
Okay, cool.
Cool.
Hevu, yeah.
Hevu, very good. So what a top bloke Tim Wilcox is. And what an amazing mission he is on, actually trying to save the history and even helping save the existence of the Waitaha, who are in danger of being wiped out from history and even the present. Terrible what goes on, and this seems to happen a lot. It's happened to a lot of British history, American history, and we look into lots of things. Some of it quite recent, some of it quite ancient, like these megalithic walls in South Wales that seem to be deliberately being destroyed. I know it's ridiculous, but it is happening. You can see it on the videos. You can follow how our language can be traced all the way back to ancient Egypt. Join the Facebook group for discussion. If you want to chuck a few quid in the bucket to help it along, that'd be great. There's no funding available for authentic history like this kind of stuff. But most importantly, enjoy the videos, share them, tell your friends, let's spread the word, and make sure it's only hidden history and not lost history.